Why did Mexico lose half of its territory to the United States? We're talking about California, Texas, Arizona, New Mexico, Nevada, Utah, and parts of Colorado. Land so vast it reshaped the future of an entire continent. And no, this wasn't just a war. It was engineered. It was provoked. It was justified by belief, greed, and power. And the version of this story most people learn is incomplete. So stay with me, because what you're about to hear may permanently change how you see American history, Mexican history, and the idea of destiny itself. In the early 19th century, Mexico was enormous. Freshly independent from Spain in 1821, it inherited a territory that stretched from the Pacific Ocean through California, Nevada, and Utah, across Arizona, New Mexico, and Texas, and deep into Central America. On a map, Mexico was a continental giant. But beneath that size was fragility. Decades of colonial extraction had left the country economically weak. Its new government was unstable. Power shifted constantly between generals, politicians, and regional elites. Mexico was young, and to its north, another nation was growing faster, richer, and more unified, the United States. And inside that nation, a dangerous idea was taking hold. They called it manifest destiny. The belief that the United States was chosen by God, by history, by fate, to expand from coast to coast. Not invited, not negotiated, destined. Manifest destiny turned expansion into morality, conquest into righteousness, and resistance into obstruction. And Mexico stood directly in the way. The first crack appeared in Texas. Mexico had encouraged settlement there, hoping to stabilize the region. American settlers were allowed in on conditions. They were supposed to obey Mexican law, convert to Catholicism, and most importantly, slavery was illegal. But those rules were ignored almost immediately. By the 1830s, American settlers outnumbered Mexicans in Texas. English replaced Spanish, and slavery, though outlawed, was widespread and violently defended. Texas wasn't becoming Mexican. It was becoming American in everything but name. When Mexico tried to enforce its laws, the settlers resisted. Then they rebelled. In 1836, Texas declared independence. Mexico rejected it completely. To Mexico, Texas was still occupied territory. To the United States, Texas was something else. An opportunity. For 9 years, Texas existed as a fragile republic, propped up by American money, American weapons, and American political pressure. Then, in 1845, the United States made its move. It annexed Texas, not through negotiation, not through compensation, simply claimed it. Mexico saw this as an act of aggression, and they were right. The border between Texas and Mexico was disputed. Mexico said it was the Nueces River. The United States claimed the Rio Grande much farther south. President James K. Polk knew exactly what that meant. He sent U.S. troops into the disputed zone. Predictably, shots were fired. Then Polk went to Congress and declared, "American blood has been shed on American soil." But it wasn't American soil. It was contested land. Still, Congress approved the war. And in 1846, the invasion began. Mexico was not prepared. Its government was in chaos. Its treasury nearly empty. Its army poorly supplied and divided. The United States arrived with trained generals, modern artillery, naval dominance, and a clear objective. General Zachary Taylor crushed resistance in the north. Then came General Winfield Scott. Scott launched one of the boldest invasions of the century, landing on Mexico's coast and marching inland, city by city, all the way to Mexico City itself. By 1847, U.S. troops occupied the Mexican capital. Mexico had no leverage left, only survival. In 1848, Mexico signed the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo. With one signature, it lost over half its territory. California, Arizona, Nevada, Utah, New Mexico, parts of Colorado and Wyoming. In exchange, the United States paid $15 million. Even at the time, it was a bargain. In today's terms, the land was taken for pennies per acre. For Mexico, it was a national catastrophe. For the United States, it was manifest destiny fulfilled. But the consequences were only beginning. The war expanded slavery. Each new territory reignited the question, slave state or free state? Southern politicians pushed relentlessly for expansion, knowing their power depended on it. Mexico had abolished slavery in 1829. That made Mexican land dangerous to the slaveholding elite. This war wasn't just about land. It was about whether human beings could continue to be owned. And by expanding westward, the United States pushed itself closer to internal collapse. Many Americans saw it. Abraham Lincoln questioned the war's legitimacy. Henry David Thoreau went to jail rather than fund it. Former President John Quincy Adams warned it would turn America into an empire of conquest. Even Ulysses S. Grant later called it one of the most unjust wars ever fought. But dissent couldn't stop it, because destiny doesn't tolerate doubt. And when the borders moved, millions of people didn't. Mexican families living in Texas, California, and New Mexico didn't cross a border. The border crossed them. The treaty promised citizenship, property rights, legal protection. In practice, those promises were broken. Land was taken through courts that favored English speakers. Violence and intimidation forced families off their own property. Mexican ranchers became laborers on land their families had owned for generations. And beneath all of this, indigenous nations were erased almost entirely. When the United States took control, removals accelerated. In California alone, indigenous populations were nearly wiped out within decades. So when we ask who lost land in this war, the answer isn't only Mexico. Then came the final irony. Just days before the treaty was signed, gold was discovered in California. Mexico had surrendered one of the richest regions on Earth without ever knowing it. The gold rush transformed the United States into a global power. History had locked itself in place. This war reshaped everything. It gave the US a Pacific empire. It trained the generals of the Civil War. It normalized the idea that power justifies action. Mexico was not the last place this lesson would be applied. It was the first. So was Mexico robbed? Or was this simply how powerful nations behave? If you believe might makes right, if you believe borders are decided by force, if you believe destiny excuses violence, then this war makes sense. But if you believe sovereignty matters, if you believe law matters, if you believe people matter, then this wasn't destiny. It was conquest. The United States did not simply expand westward. Provoked. It invaded, and it imposed its will. Mexico didn't lose half its land because it failed history. It lost because it stood in the path of an empire that believed it was chosen. And that belief still echoes today. Because history doesn't repeat when we forget dates. It repeats when we forget lessons.